What's up everybody, Super Fan here, and today I want to do a comparison video of the 2016 Camaro SS I just reviewed and the Mustangs that I've owned, of course, the 2015 EcoBoost here, and also the 2015 GT Performance package that I reviewed earlier this year. And so a few things that I noticed immediately as soon as I got out of the Camaro after driving the Camaro SS all day and getting back into my Mustang. The first things that I noticed was the visibility. Now, I talked about that, in the Camaro review and how the Camaro has poor visibility, but it's so much of a bigger difference than it used to be with the older Mustang. Because the older Mustang, the dashboard up here, rose up pretty high too, and they weren't quite so different between the old gen Camaro and the old gen Mustang. But now with the 2015, they've improved the sight lines and the visibility so much in the 15s here that this is so much lower. And I mean, obviously the window sills are lower, so I can actually, rest my arm on the window here if I want to. The Camaro, that was not an option. In the Camaro, the windows didn't start until above my shoulder. It was crazy. And you're sitting lower in the Camaro. Obviously I have my seat up a little higher here in the Mustang, and you can do that in the Camaro as well. But it just, the way that the windows are cut and the doors are cut, you're gonna have that feeling no matter how you position the seat, unless you're a really large person that's really tall and a long torso. You're gonna have that encounter whenever you're in the Camaro. So that's the one thing that I noticed right away. And I mean, the visibility in the Mustang isn't the best in the world either. It's not anywhere near as good as like a Honda Civic or something like that. You still have a hood you gotta look out over and stuff. But I've just found myself in the Camaro, when I was driving it, I was going like this. I was driving around like this a lot. I'm 5'9", so I mean, I'm not super tall, but I'm not super short either. And so, just having to go like this all the time, it was like I was permanently just like driving with my head, cocked up just a little bit, because that's, the only way you could really see, because you're constantly having to peer out over this super tall dashboard. And I mean, that's something I could probably get used to over time, but it's just so much nicer here in the Mustang, to be able to look down the road and down the hood than up over a dashboard. And so that's one of the first big things I noticed. One of the other big things I noticed right off the bat, and this is favorable to the Camaro, is the clutch and the shifter. So the clutch is better in the Camaro, but I like the shifter better than in the Mustang. So let me explain. The clutch in the Camaro is super forgiving, very light, and it has a really good feel point and grab point. You know exactly how much gas to give in order to get it to grab. And it's probably, aside from a Honda Civic Si, it's the easiest car to learn manual transmission on as far as all the cars I've reviewed so far. It's really that easy to drive. So that's the one thing I love. The Mustang clutch, by the way, is really heavy either way. I mean, I have the clutch spring removed, even with it in. Either way, it's a heavy clutch by modern standards. There's no way to get around it. It's one of the heaviest clutches that I've used that's been from an OEM, factory clutch. Yeah, that's the one thing I don't like about the Mustang, is the heavier clutch. I mean, again, you get used to everything. Driving daily, you can overcome just about anything. You just get used to it. It's not that bad. This is 2015. Cars are a whole lot easier to drive than they ever were. So not a big deal. A lot of this is nitpicking, but just things I want to point out. As far as the shifter, though, I like the Mustang shifter better. It has this mechanical feel to it, and it's more direct feeling. Now, the Camaro shifter was really nice and precise still, and it was light and it felt good, but it was a little more rubbery and a little more notchy. And so that's one thing that the Mustang here, it doesn't have any of that. It's just a very mechanical, you can feel it going into the physical gear, and it's a really satisfying experience, especially when you're rolling through the gears aggressively. And so it's a little bit of a shorter shift too in the Mustang than you have in the Camaro as well, so that's also appreciated. Obviously that could be fixed with a short shift kit in the Camaro, but still just nonetheless nice to have that as well. So those are some of the things that really stood out to me right off the bat. Now, I've reviewed the Mustang GT. I own an EcoBoost myself, so I like Mustangs a lot. This is hands down the better handler. It's more exciting. You got more torque than you do with the GT and the Mustang anyway. So it just feels faster in every way. It is faster in every way, according to the numbers as well. I would much rather go through a back road in one of these than my Mustang, for sure. Even the GTs or anything like that. I mean, I haven't driven a Shelby yet, so maybe that would change my mind, but this is really impressive. All right, so another thing that was a really big difference between these two cars is the handling. Now, the Camaro is actually slightly lighter, or right around the same weight as the Mustang now, and so it's really on a big diet, and I mentioned that in the review already. But the main thing is the Camaro has a sharper turn in, a quicker steering rack, a smaller steering wheel in general, which kind of helps in that directness, and it has less body roll. It's more quick to respond. You can tell that it's a little bit of a shorter platform now, and you can tell it's got that quicker turn, and this car feels longer in its wheelbase in the way that it handles and stuff. Now the Mustangs, I mean, especially for 2015, handle much better than the old ones and are a very good handling car in general. So, nothing to knock on the Mustang here. It's just that the Camaro has one-upped it, and the Camaro simply handles better. Even the GT Performance package, it handles much better. It feels lighter, and I mean, even though the Camaro on paper isn't much lighter than the Mustang, it feels 200 to 300 pounds lighter than the Mustang, I would say, just with how much of a difference there is with how sharp it is and how light and agile it feels. And that's the thing, is the Camaro always felt heavy, and that was okay, but that's the way it always felt in the past. Now it doesn't feel like that. It feels lighter than it actually is, and they've masked the weight. I mean, the weight is less, so they've done a good job there, but they've also masked the weight they do have, so it doesn't feel heavy at all, honestly. And like I said in the review, it feels like it's just a slightly heavier Corvette, and it handles just about as good as a Corvette, really. A little bit more body roll, obviously not quite as amazing as the Corvette, but very close, actually, closer than I was expecting. And the Mustang just simply doesn't have that. I have springs and sway bars and standard crappy tires here on my EcoBoost, so that may not be as fair of a comparison. But with the GT Performance package that I reviewed, still, I mean, that handled really well, really well. But it's still not quite up to what you get here in the Camaro. So that's another thing to mention. And so the final thing that I want to mention is the price, because the price is a really big thing. The Camaro is, I'd say more like $5,000 to $7,000 more than the Mustang, depending on how you equip it and whatnot. But if you were comparing like the 2SS Camaro, which is $43,000, with a premium GT Mustang, which is like $37,000, you're like $5,000 difference there. And there may be a few standard features, like you have the heads-up display. You don't get that in the Mustang. So there's a few things that maybe that's a little bit of a lesser difference. If you would have those options in the Mustang, then it would close the gap a bit. But the Camaro is definitely the more expensive vehicle, and it even gets worse with the cheaper models. I loaded up a V6 on the configurator page that Chevy has, and obviously the V6 is a little more powerful than the EcoBoost, but it's supposed to compete with the Mustang EcoBoost here. And in the customizer, my V6 that I optioned out was $38,000, and it was pretty, I'd say pretty fairly configured to this. And whereas you can get an EcoBoost Premium for $30,000 or so, so it's almost an $8,000 difference there at that point. Obviously, you have things like the dual mode exhaust and other niceties that you have to pay extra for here in the premium GT, such as the blind spot monitoring and stuff like that, which could push it closer to $33,000, but you're still looking at a $5,000 difference. But like I said, it can get up even closer to an $8,000 difference for a relatively similar equipped car. So that is the biggest challenge I think the Camaro is going to have, is its price. It's a little more expensive. Now, it's a lot of people, it's going to be worth it because you have things, cool options like the magnetic ride control, the dual mode exhaust that you can add on, and just the fact that you have more power, and it's a faster car in every performance metric. It handles better, it feels lighter, it's more exciting to drive, I think. But I'm being really hard on the Mustang here, because that's where you factor in the price and consider that the Mustang GT Premium is about $5,000 less. Is the Camaro $5,000 better? And that's up to you to decide. It just depends on the person. Me personally, I've always loved Mustangs. I've always adored them, and I still prefer the styling on the exterior and interior of the Mustang over the Camaro. Now the Camaro's interior is really sweet in a futuristic kind of way, while still having, you know, a few little throwbacks here, but the Mustang is more retro, and I am still one of those people that loves retro things. I basically, if I could buy a 68 Mustang with modern safety and modern technology, I would be all over that. Like, I still love the old stuff, and so for me, the back end of this car is almost identical to the 69 Mustang. You know, you have the modern front end now with the 15s here, and you have, but I love how, you know, they still have the old school setup for the gauges and the dashboard, and you know, even the center console is reminiscent to the old Mustangs in many ways, and I like all that retro stuff. And you know, for 16 they have the turn signals in the hood vents and all those little things, the sequential turn signals, the pony projection lamps, all those little things are the things that really make a big difference to me. And those are the little trim pieces, the little toys, and you know, what some people would consider chintzy or, you know, kind of I don't know, immature things, are the things that I actually appreciate about the Mustang and put it slightly over. You know, I like the retro design of the steering wheel, even though the Camaro steering wheel actually feels better. It's one of those things where you do the crazy thing. What do you actually go for function over form, or, you know, is it the other way around? And so that's again, this is all subjective stuff. There's no wrong choice here. You can go with either one. You're gonna have a great time with both. They're both spectacular. But me personally, you know, because many of you have asked, oh, you're gonna sell your Mustang and actually like the Camaro better. I do like the Camaro better. Hands down, I would much rather, you know, tear up a back road in a Camaro over a Mustang. That's just the way it is, and that's my personal preference. And you can feel free to agree or disagree. But you know, based on the price and things like that, it's still, you know, a little bit prohibitive for me with the Camaro, because I think I'm easy to please, I guess, and you know, I don't need to have the absolute sharpest handling. And although I enjoy the Camaro more, I don't know if I enjoy it $5,000 more, you know, because otherwise you're getting the relatively same experience. You know, you still have, you know, great infotainment, heated and cooled seats, all that kind of stuff. You know, and there are a few things that, you know, Ford hasn't done yet, like the Apple CarPlay, that I really wish they had, and Chevy does have. And you know, maybe if I had $43,000 to spend, would I buy a Camaro over a GT? Maybe, you know, but if I'm looking in my current position and I'm, you know, trying to, you know, be thrifty and stuff, you know, what is the best bang for the buck? And for me personally, I think I would still go for the Mustang GT, just because, you know, it's $5,000 cheaper, brand new, and now with the 2015s being out for a year, you can get a really good deal on a used one, get them right around $30,000, and at that point, you're talking about a $13,000 difference. Sorry for, you know, comparing that. And obviously, that's not a fair comparison, a used car versus a brand new one, but that's just, you know, where I'm at personally, and so that's why, you know, the Camaro is still out of reach, and I think would be an unwise purchase from a financial standpoint, obviously. And I don't plan on even buying a GT Mustang anytime soon. I'm planning on keeping my EcoBoost for a while here. I really like it a lot still. But you know, whenever the time comes to upgrade, I still would like to upgrade to a GT eventually. And when that time comes, I may still, you know, consider a Camaro and see if I can get a good deal on maybe one that's a year old or a couple years old at that time. But I don't know. I feel like, you know, I still just have that. I don't know what it is. I think it's just, you know, Bullitt was one of my favorite movies growing up. That chase is iconic, and being able to drive a dark green Mustang around and just pretend like I'm Steve McQueen when I'm clearly not, it's just fun. And I don't know, I guess it's just one of those things that even if a car is better in every way, you know, you still just, personally, I would rather just own the Mustang, just for the, you know, because of that movie and because of, you know, the retro things and all the things that I've mentioned. That is why I am sticking with the Mustang. It's a very long-winded response, but I mean, I have lots of friends that, you know, love the Camaro, and I love the Camaro myself. It's really spectacular, and you know, I absolutely adore the 2016. They did an epic job with it, and it's clearly better than the Mustang in every objective way, I would say. But that doesn't mean that subjectively everyone's going to pick it. And that's the funny thing about opinion and preference and whatnot. And so yeah, but that is all of my thoughts on comparing the Mustang to the Camaro. let me know your thoughts. You know, I know many of you were requesting for me to do this, and I knew that it was something that would be a good idea as soon as I reviewed the Camaro, because I wanted to directly compare the two without, you know, detracting from the reviews too much. So that's why I wanted to do this in a separate video. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching my long-winded explanation here, and yeah, let me know what you think in the comments, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.